Hi everybody, it's Freedom Dove again. I thought I would make a video showing my little experiment here. I've never done this before, so it's an experiment for me. I'm going to use my Instant Pot to make homemade caramel sauce using just one ingredient, which is sweetened condensed milk. I use the organic kind. It's from Kroger. They have a brand called Simple Truth Organic, and it's sweetened condensed milk. It's a 14-ounce can, and I am going to put it in this canning jar. This is a wide mouth pint-sized jar, a wide mouth pint-sized jar with a new lid. This is a brand new lid. This is an old ring, but that doesn't matter. The ring doesn't have to be new, but you do want a new lid. And of course, this is clean and dry. And so I found this online. I was just searching for homemade caramel sauce in the Instant Pot, and I found a food blog that showed this. Of course, I think she was using the 6-quart, and I'm using the mini Instant Pot, but it's basically the same thing. And so if I can think of it, I'll try to link that article in the description. And so first thing you have to do is open the can, obviously. And this is my can opener. I really like it. Hopefully you can see that. It's a safety can opener, which means it doesn't leave any sharp edges. And I really like this thing, because I don't like sharp edges on cans at all. And so when you set it on the can, you're basically going to be setting the can right there, the lip of it right there. And I always start in a place that's recognizable to me, so I start right after this barcode. I start right on this side of it, so that once it makes a full revolution, I know when I'm supposed to be done, because you're only supposed to really make one revolution around it, but sometimes you have to make more than one, so it's nice to know where you started so that you know where you're supposed to end up. And so you just set it down on the thing and start twisting the top, and it grabs on, and you'll feel it grab on. And you I push down on it a little bit. And see, I passed that barcode, and so you back up, and that releases it. And then that also helps me identify, because I like to try to open it on the opposite side of where I started, because if it's going to be attached anywhere, it's going to be attached right on the side where you started, right at the point where you started. And so knowing that I started over here, I can come to the opposite side of the can, and you pick the lid off with this over here. It's a little plier, and that's the little grabber that, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but when I push that button, it works that over there. I know what I'm trying to say. And so you put that down on the rim, and then you push down, and it'll grab, and then you just kind of pry it up backwards that way. And so you can see it came right off first time around. And this kind of can opener, it does leave the little bit of stringies, the glue, because the way that these are put on, they put the lid on, and then there's some sort of adhesive that they use for bonding, and then they press it down, and then they put it through the canner and stuff like that. So sometimes you'll have little strings of adhesive that come off. So just try to pull them away from your food. Don't let them go down into your food. People complain about that, but I'd much rather have a lid that came off like that with no sharp edges, because that's exactly the lid that they use. They just put it right down on there. And so, probably can't see that. I'll have to show you when the can's empty, but there are no sharp edges whatsoever anywhere. And so this is gonna go in my pint-size canning jar, my wide mouth canning jar. And I am making this homemade caramel sauce to make caramel apples and also to make some candy like, you know, like turtles with the caramel inside. And always use a good silicone spatula or scraper to get all that goodness out. You don't have to use organic sweetened condensed milk, but I do highly recommend it. I recommend organic everything when you can find it. I maybe should have gotten another utensil here. This is pretty sticky stuff. Okay, I got this. Just scrape it all off. Be a little bit of a waste. And it helps to have a damp paper towel, because I just got some on the ring, and you don't want any of this on the, not on the ring, on the edge, because you're going to be putting a canning lid on here, and you really want that clean. Just like if you were canning anything, you need that to be clean. And so it goes on. It's a 2-piece, and you just do it hand tight, not anything over tight or anything. And then I'll plug in my little mini Instant Pot. It automatically comes on. So the amount of water that you want to put in here, I've got my trivet in here. That's the insert, and that's the trivet. And you want enough water in the pot to go at least halfway up the jar. So I'll set that down in here. And I've already checked it. This just barely fits. Like, it barely fits. I'm a little bit nervous, but it does fit. I'm not forcing the lid on. So we're just gonna experiment here and see what happens. Just go halfway up the jar. And there's a maximum mark in there, so you don't want to go above the max. Yeah, that's about halfway. I'm going to add some vinegar anyways, because this is hard water, and I don't like hard water stains in my cookware. And so I just add a little bit of white vinegar. Cheap white vinegar. I don't use it to cook or anything. I just use it for cleaning. Just a little bit of that. Alright, so we're ready to go. One ingredient, couldn't be easier. So make sure that everything's functioning. Make sure your gasket is in there all the way. It's not all popped out or anything. Make sure your button is nice and loose. Make sure that's working. And you want to set that to sealing. There's sealing and venting. That's venting. So you want to have it over here on the sealing. And like I said, it just barely fits down in there, but because this has got a concave lid, it's okay. Because I'm just setting it down on there. Excuse me. And then you lock your Instant Pot. And it makes all these fancy noises, and that's pretty much what tells you that everything's okay. And again, you make sure it's on sealing, and make sure that the little thing isn't cocked or anything, because it won't come to pressure if it's not properly adjusted. And then we're gonna do pressure cook. It's already on high. And we're gonna go for 30 minutes. I want to turn that keep warm function off because that comes on automatically and I don't want that on. So we've got it set for 30 minutes on high, and I'm going to let it go for a natural release. So it just takes a minute for it to register and go, okay. So now it's going to start, and the heating unit will come on, and it's going to get hot in there and come to pressure. And then when it finally comes to pressure, the timer will go off, or it will start counting down. So it'll go to 30, and then it'll start counting down after that. And then when it's done, it'll beep at me again. I'm not sure if I'll have all this on camera, so I'm just going to explain it. And then I'm just going to do a natural release. So if you know anything about pressure cookers, you'll know that there's a quick release and a natural release. The quick release is when you take that little lever and you flip it to venting, and all that steam will come out. And in the article that I'm referencing, I think she does like a 10-minute natural release, meaning she waits until 10 minutes after it's done and then she vents it. But I'm not in a hurry like she was, so I'm just going to do a complete natural release, and that'll probably take 20 to 25 minutes. And that pin, after this comes up to pressure, the pin comes up, and so when it's done releasing the pressure naturally or quickly, that pin will drop back down because it's in the down position right now. So I will get back to you when this is all done, and we'll see how it looks. It should look much darker in color, you know, because this is pretty light and caramel is a lot darker than that. So we'll see how it goes. See you then. Alright, so I forgot to show you this can. It's really sticky right now, but I can run my finger through here and it's not cutting me. There are no sharp edges whatsoever, and you saw on the lid there were no sharp edges either. So I really like my can opener. I can't say enough good things about it. I love this guy. So what I think I'm going to do is try to do a time lapse so that maybe you can see this in action, but you know, quickly, so you're not getting bored or anything. Alright, so I'm going to turn this off and start the time lapse. Alright guys, so that was a little time lapse that hopefully I was able to include, unless it got too long. But I had to turn it off because it's been a while and the pin is still up, and I'm afraid that time lapse was just getting too long. So what I'm waiting for is this pin to drop back down, and then the pressure will be all released. But it's off now. It went for its 30 minutes. So when it's all done and depressurized, I will get back with you. Alright guys, here we are. Everything's done. The pin has dropped down on my pressure cooker, and so now I can take the lid off. That means it has naturally decompressed, and so it's going to chime at me when I take the lid off. And you want to make sure that when you take the lid off, you let the water drain. I don't know if you just saw that. Hopefully you did. It's very quick. You have to be really crafty, but there's a lot of water on this lid when you take it off, and so you want to let the water drip back down into your pan, or you're going to make a mess all around you. So there's still some water there, but not nearly as much as when you take the lid off at first. And that's really hot. It's not too hot. It's not too hot to touch. But look at the color change. Hopefully you can see that. That went from, and the lid is loose, it's not real tight, so tightening it, just finger tight work. Oh, it just popped. Okay, that just sealed itself. I don't know if you heard that, but that's the sound that you hear when you're canning, and that means that this jar is perfectly sealed. So I could literally take this jar and just leave it on the shelf, and it would be sealed, and I wouldn't have to worry about refrigerating it. But hopefully you can see here how dark the color has gotten. I know my lighting really is very bad, but that's definitely caramel colored. And unfortunately, I cannot find that article that I was talking about earlier, but there are a few food bloggers online who use Instant Pots, and so you should be able to find that online pretty easily. I'm gonna keep looking, but I know that this particular food blogger, she said that when you take it out, that you need to let it set and come not to room temperature fully, but basically you need to let it cool down, because if you were to stir this right now, she said it would curdle. And I believe her. I learned from other people's mistakes. I'm capable of doing that, and so I'm just going to listen to this woman when she says not to stir this yet. And it's really thick right now, and it's nice and brown, so it looks like it's going to turn out. And I went in and looked at my apples, and I actually bought them a couple weeks ago. I wanted to do this a couple weeks ago, but I never got around to it. And so those apples are a little bit old, and so what I'm going to do is, instead of coating the apples and making them caramel apples, quote unquote, I'm just going to use this as a caramel dip. And so when we're ready to eat, we will peel the apples and use our apple core slicer. It's a little gadget I have that you set down, and it makes perfect slices out of your apple. And then we'll just use this as a caramel dip. And then, like I said, I'll probably make some candy, because my son loves candy, and I will only let him have good candy. Except for on Halloween, then I don't really have too much control, but he doesn't have very much candy. And so this is really a treat for him. So I will move that out of the way, and you can see that's still on. And so I just have to unplug it now and let that cool off. The water is still very hot right now. So that's it, guys. That's how you make caramel sauce, homemade caramel sauce with one ingredient in a pressure cooker, like the little mini Instant Pot. And you can use this for whatever your heart desires. Like if you have a cake that you want to add caramel on the top, or brownies or anything like that, or as a caramel dip, you can dip your apples in caramel and, you know, put the stick on the apple, and then you would dip them in that, and that would make the traditional caramel apple. Or you can do just like what I'm going to do and just make caramel dip, so that you can have your apple slices in it. And like I said, I can make turtles out of this, or whatever other kind of candy. So I'm not going to stir this yet because it's still hot and I don't want it to curdle. So I'm just going to let this cool off at room temperature, and we'll be good to go. Alright guys, that's how you make homemade caramel sauce. I hope that was helpful. See you later. Alright, so I realized that it was not very nice of me to leave you hanging like that. So I'm going to open the jar here on film so that you can see how it turned out. So you can tell, like, it's totally thickened up. It's about 65 in here, or lower. It's actually 63 in here right now. And so this has been like a day and a half later or something like that. And what I have a feeling about is that I'm gonna have to actually warm this up to be able to use it because it's so darn thick right now. But let's do it. You can see the dimple is down. I don't know if you can tell, but it's still sealed. And so I have to pop that seal, and the little pliers on here, that's good for this type of lid too. It's a little bit harder to grab onto. A lot harder. There we go. So it didn't pop like it normally would, but I think that's because of the can opener I used. And it might also because of the space. Normally when you're canning, you fill your jar up to the bottom here, or even one of the bottom threads. And so I wouldn't want to let this sit out at room temperature for too long, because I don't know, it may not be totally safe because it's not filled. But you can see it formed some bubbles on the top, and it is not going anywhere without some help. So, oh, that's nice. I'm not having any trouble. I thought it would be harder to stir because it's so thick. I was thinking it might be like a little brick in there, but it's not. It's, I don't know if you can tell. That's like perfect caramel right there. It's making gross noises. Yeah, that's perfect. Now to pour it, like this would be perfect for, you know, dipping apples in. But if you wanted to use it for something else, like for the insides of chocolates, I'm probably gonna have to warm that up in the water bath here, because this actually has a saute function that if I kept the water in there and I turned it on saute, it would, you know, pretty much be a simmering or keep warm. Ah, I hate the noises it's making, but I want to stir it all the way to the bottom. I know this video is getting long, but see down here at the bottom, there is some that's not smooth, and so you definitely, I would recommend getting your spatula all the way down to the bottom and bringing it up to the top to mix in with the rest of it. And see, when I was looking at the outside of the jar, it did look like there was a layer at the bottom that was different. It was a little bit darker. And as I'm stirring it, I wish you could see what I'm doing, but I'm not going to be able to show you that. But it was like a little bit chunky or something down there on the bottom. I don't know how to explain it, but it's smoothing out now. It's okay now. You just need to bring it all up from the bottom and get it all stirred in together. But yeah, that's good caramel right there. I haven't tasted it, of course, but it looks good. It looks like peanut butter, but a really, really, really smooth peanut butter. And I think you could probably cook it longer. If that's not dark enough for you, you can cook it longer than 30 minutes. And again, the lighting in here is really bad. And so you're probably not seeing the true colors with that. I'm not even seeing the true colors with it because my lighting has a really yellowish tint. And even though I try to fix it in the video, I don't think I'm doing a very good job. Hey. Alright, well, I'm using this stuff. I think I might actually make some apple caramel bars I made before using a store-bought caramel sauce, and they were really good. It's got like a crust for the base, and then a layer of apples, and then a layer of caramel. It was really good, so I might make that using those apples that are in there. I don't know, but it'll get used for something. Alright, I swear that was it this time. You guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you later.